Good morning, folks, and welcome to the first ever CCUF International Student Panel. We are joined by a number of international students who have kind of been through maybe what you're considering, been where you've been, and can sort of reflect on their experiences. We're here to hear some of their stories and give you folks a chance to ask questions, right? To learn a little bit more about maybe what to expect. So for myself, I'm Logan. I'll be sort of your moderator today with CCUF. But I'm joined by our esteemed panel. So we've got Andrea Bioko. Welcome, Andrea. Hello. We've got Munira Birdwala. Hello, Munira. We've got Ricardo Garcia on the line, as well as Noah Zhao and Ali Najaf. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking some time out. We'll chat for half an hour, 45 minutes. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some fun as well. Before we go too much further, let's do a quick round of more fulsome intros. Andrea, can you start us off? Maybe give us a quick bit about you, who you are, what you're about.
For sure. Hi, guys. You can call me Andrea Bioko. I was born and raised in Spain. I'm an international marketing student at St. Mary's University, also called the Sobey School of Business here in Canada. Fun fact about me, once COVID started, I decided to start hosting a podcast at school, just a way for networking among not only international students, but also local students. And I love tacos.
Thanks very much, Andrea. I've just posted a link to the podcast as well. It's a great resource for international students. We'll plug that again a little later. But yeah, very cool. Thank you for the intro. Munira, can you go ahead, tell us a bit about yourself?
So I'm Munira. I came in 5 years ago for a graduate degree. That was at Ryerson. I continued my education in Canada, currently a PhD.
Beauty. Thanks very much, Munira. Any fun facts for yourself? Have you started any podcasts?
Oh, Avid Coffee. And yeah, I'm listening to University of Toronto's immunology podcast.
Wow. Oh, okay, cool. Is it pretty compelling, or maybe you need to be in the field to get the most out of it?
No, not really. They just have conversations about what it's like to be in grad academia. Also critique some of the main topics on it. But yeah.
Cool. Okay, that might be of interest to others, considering the same. Thanks very much. Ricardo, how about yourself? Can you give us a quick intro who you are?
Of course. So my name is Ricardo Garcia. I am from Brazil, northeast of Brazil, right on the coast. So coming from 32 positive to minus 32 negative right here. So a lot of experience in that changing of climate. I have 2 kids. I am more of what you would say the experienced international student, or I was in the past. I've been in Canada for 3.5 years. I lived in the US as an international student too. I got my education there. So I can also speak about those 2 experiences. I graduated from Centennial, moved in Toronto, moved to the East Coast, to Atlantic Canada. I'm now in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Loving here, and I'll be very happy to speak about the Atlantic programs as well, which is very attractive for us. And now I'm working at Flywire, which helps international students make payments from home or your parents. So, any prospect on being international students and facing the world on work, please count me in.
Beauty. Okay, thanks, Ricardo. Great. Noah, how about yourself? Can you give us a quick intro, who you are, what you're about?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Noah Xiao. I've been an international student for 8 years in Canada. I did my high school, my undergrad, and also my master's in Canada. I complete my master's degrees at McMaster University. I'm currently doing my PhD in biotechnology in Brock University. My research is mainly focused in molecular biology and genetics, and on top of that, I'm also a plant biologist. Hence, not surprising about me is that I like keeping plants, and apparently I'm very good at it.
Oh, you got a
Despite
green thumb?
death in the past, but things can grow.
Nice.
So yeah, and I was originally in Chinese. Sorry, I came from China 8 years ago. I recently become a permanent residency during pandemic, which was actually quite interesting because I can see the domestic student. I'm finally enjoying domestic benefits after all these years. And yeah, so that's about me. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Noah. Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that as we go as well. Thanks very much. And Ali, how about yourself? Can you give us a quick intro? Yeah, well, about yourself.
Thank you, Logan, for the opportunity. Hi, everyone. My name is Ali. I came from Pakistan back in 2012, did my undergraduate degree here at BD School of Business 2018, and currently I'm working as an HR specialist with one of the largest in North America. And when I'm not working, I'm trying to explore different cuisines here in Vancouver.
Oh, okay. What's your pick right now? What's your fave?
I would say is the Lebanese food.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, I can agree with you there. Okay, beauty. Thanks everybody for weighing in a little bit. I know we have some questions coming in from the audience, some along the lines. So we'll kind of jump through some of our topics here and expand as we need. So yeah, we'll go round table. Andrea, we can start with yourself. Why'd you end up choosing Canada of all places, right? How'd you end up here?
Great. Well, I think I didn't mention this before, but I moved to Canada 6 years ago when I was 18 years old. And it was right when I graduated from high school. I was in Spain and I noticed that I needed to improve my English. And I knew that if I wanted to make sure that I want to have a job that was, fits with my interests, English was the main important thing. And I had the experience before that to travel around. And Canada was a place where I didn't have enough knowledge, but I knew that I had family there. So that was the kind of like the first thought that I had in my mind, like Canada maybe because I have a family member. But then I started doing my research and I noticed that Canada is known by being a multicultural land. So that was the thing that really pushed me to be like, just go learn English there and then figure out in terms of your academics. But the main goal was pretty much go there, study English, and come back.
And the comeback has been, I guess, deferred, or you never
Yeah,
know.
I fell in love with Canada. Like after I did English for like until I turned 20. And after that, I was like, I really like this place. And I just was starting the opportunities when you're an international student and after you graduate. And I'm like, in the long term, this place must be nice. So I ended up staying and just moved. I moved from PEI to Nova Scotia.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so out east also. We'll talk a bit about the Atlantic program that Ricardo mentioned too. Okay, thanks, Andrea. Munira, how about yourself? Canada, how'd you end up there?
So I come from Kuwait, which really have a lot of great opportunities for higher education. So options were U.S., Canada, and Europe. I didn't want to go to Europe because I've heard it's most inclusive. And comparing U.S. to Canada, Canada is obviously much more affordable, I want to say, compared to U.S. And I thought that the quality of education that I would get in Canada would be a lot better for a lot less than what I would pay in the U.S. Like a state university is a college in New York is more expensive than Ryerson, which I went to, which is a university. So that was a factor. And then like I had a family member here, which I guess made my transition a bit easier. Of course, Canada inclusive and diverse prompted me to come here.
Okay, interesting. Munira, when you mentioned as well Canada's less expensive, were you actually comparing, here's a couple of schools in the US that I might like, but look at the sticker kind of price tag type thing?
No, I was comparing programs. That was that was my top priority program of choice. And then I wanted to choose either New York or Toronto. So yes.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Ricardo, how about yourself? You came 3.5 years ago to Canada. What prompted that?
Okay, so as I said, I started my international student career in the U.S. I went to Texas to learn English. When I was 18, I ended up staying, getting my undergrad and a master's, living in the U.S. for 10 years, and then I decided to move back to Brazil. Met my wife, I started a family, and then stayed in Brazil for 10 years. When the violence kind of kicked me out of Brazil, I said, this is too much. And then I started looking for opportunities. Obviously, the U.S. didn't want me because I lived there for 10 years and couldn't immigrate. So another hint for you is not only the cost, the price, but it's very hard to pursue a green card or get a green card in the U.S. And so Australia was too far, and I said, okay, so Canada it is, and started looking at Canada and got together with a friend and started planning to come to Canada. I traveled with my wife to see Toronto. We stayed in Toronto for 3 weeks in January, right in the peak of the weather. That was in 2018.
Sure.
And then in May, I came to decided to come. I came first, left the family there, and in August they joined me in Toronto at that time.
Was your sort of preview trip part of what convinced you to pull the trigger in the end?
Yes, two things there, and that trip too, it opened up an opportunity for me to start actually working, because the original plan was for my wife to go to school and I would work, because with a work permit, because I had the experience, had the language, it wouldn't be a barrier. So to put it this way, I was more marketable to be working and providing for the family, and she would go to study. But and that was the main reason why we chose Toronto and why we started there.
Very cool. Okay, thanks, Ricardo. Great. Noah, how about yourself? You've been here for quite some time. What was it originally that prompted Canada of all places?
Well, for me, it was mainly the idea is that when I was 16, I know myself I would like to pursue academia. I would like to get a PhD, and I'm working in relation to biology research. So Canada was one of the leading countries in terms of doing research in biology front, and not including UBC, universities that does amazing research like UBC, UFT, McMaster's, and McMagill, all of the universities. So there was a lot of choice. I think the main reason I came to Canada because it was my best option. Um, it's an English-speaking country, which I have been learning English in Chinese educational system since age of 3, I think. Um, so it was appropriate, and also, like I think someone else mentioned, it was affordability as well. It is generally cheaper. It's English speaking and is generally cheaper compared to US and many countries in Europe. I guess in certain cases it's cheaper, and also cultural differences. It's more inclusive. I think I really like the societies is more stable. Um, I think, in my opinion, it's a much more inclusive societies, which I do enjoy because, you know, when we are being in our own country, we don't realize it because it's such a homogenized country. In our own country, we only see our own people. We don't realize we're might be being against it because of racism. That never crossed my mind when I live among Chinese, because we're all the same. But that become a main considerations when you study overseas. Yeah, so based on all those reasons, I chose Canada, and I have been enjoying it very much.
Yeah, right on. You've stuck through 3 or 4 levels of education so far, right? So you
Oh,
must be
yes,
liking
it
it.
was very interesting. I did high school here, which was very interesting too. Like, it's very different educational systems during high school.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. And if we have time, I'd like to come back to that. But for now, I'm going to
Oh,
jump on. So thanks very much, Noah. Ali, how about yourself, sir? You've been here some time too, maybe 10 years. How'd you decide on Canada?
I would say like the reason I chose Canada because of its acceptability and I'm here, because and that was something that brought me here more easily to find a decision there. Other thing is the immigration program of Canada, which is very simple and straightforward in terms of like if you want to become a citizen at the end of your education. I became permanent resident very easily, like following all the rules and guidelines. So I think those are the two reasons that helped me like choose Canada to make my final destination. And in terms of like location, Vancouver because of its moderate weather.
Hmm, interesting. Have you
Interesting that you
found?
say moderate.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm over here with my warm clothes on. Okay, Ali. So you touched on this. A lot of folks did the sort of multicultural element. I'm curious. Would you say maybe we'll jump back the opposite direction? Ali, we'll stay with you for now. When you actually arrived, how well did your expectations kind of match the reality on the ground?
I would say my experience might have been more different than others was because like if I lived on campus residence throughout my undergraduate degree, and when I lived on campus at that time, we had a lot of international students as well from like different parts of the world here as well. And then we have a lot of domestic students. And I think like when you arrive on your first day, everyone is on the same board. Like everyone is curious to like how the university life is going to be, what is going to be the challenges. So I think like that gave us like all of us a good platform to like connect with each other and like make friends and be more acceptable to each other. I think like that helped me meet all those expectations. And throughout my time, like even when I was working on my co-ops or internships, I found people more perspective of my religion or of my culture. Like as a Muslim, like I have to fast, but like my work would make arrangements for me to leave early work so I can go back home and break my fast. So then like in
Right.
those areas, in a lot of acceptability throughout my both student life as well as my professional life.
Okay, that's nice to hear. I'm glad to hear that. Noah, how about yourself? Did your expectations more or less match reality when you arrived, or not so much?
well, in my case, I think my expectation pretty much meets the reality.
Hmm,
I really, whenever I go during my high school undergrads and not so much master, but during my high school and my undergrad, I have always been part of, I guess, Asian slash Chinese community. In a way, there are a lot of restaurants that makes Chinese food, and there is specific festivals. People do things in Chinatown, for example. So I was able to, I guess, ease into this society and
hmm,
still have some connection to my original part as a Chinese during that. However, that kind of changed once I start going higher and higher in my academia career. I think studying like the late turn, like the third or fourth year of my program, I start actually not able to see much Chinese people. I stopped speaking Chinese on a regular basis because nobody actually speak Chinese anymore in my program. And certainly my master's, my PhDs, there aren't any Chinese speaking people around me anymore. So I think that's a slow transition. In that case, it really depends on what you do and the populations and things. From my experience, that's what happens. But yeah, and for me as a Chinese, there is a huge cohort of people around me, and there is enough. I guess 5 to 6% of the population, Canadian population, are Chinese origin. Even more for Asian in general,
sure.
which is a very important part for me because I can still contain and celebrate a lot of my cultural background
Right.
Even though now I have been a Canadian for a very long time, quote unquote Canadian.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good that those connections can be maintained, right? Okay, thanks, Noah. Ricardo, how about yourself? You had your sort of preview trip to Toronto first, had lived in the States for a while. How closely did Canada match to your expectations once you really arrived on the ground?
It's a funny story because it didn't at all.
No, no.
Not so much on the expectations, but on the plans. So when I did that exploratory visit, it turned out we started working towards an opportunity for me to come in partner up with another Canadian and start our own business. So during that time, from January to May, when I came, we're developing that information, and it was another friend of mine from the same hometown. We came together, and we all gonna get together and do that. So we both arrived on a Saturday, and on a Monday, when we had the first meeting with our Canadian partner, he turned to us and says, "There's no business anymore. We're not going forward." So all the planning that evolved around that plan went sour right on our third day in Canada. So and that was my plan A. Then I went to plan B, C, D, E. I'm calling plan M right now, but it just goes to say that no matter what you plan, something's going to turn around, and you need to be flexible. You need to be resilient. You need to know what you want and pursue it. So that's in the end it worked out. It will work out itself out. That's but in terms of expectations, that it was not a good story.
Yikes. Well, yeah, you bounced back though, right? Okay. Thanks, Ricardo. Interesting that things can go so awry. Manira, how about you? You've been here a few years. Did Canada more or less match your expectations and plans, or did things kind of, how did it go for you?
I think Canada exceeded my expectations. Came in with this linear plan or path, I guess. I wanted to do undergrad and then school. But that obviously changed because I had mentors who kind of suggested that I join a lab. So I actually did undergrad with years of research. I didn't want to stay there. So I want to doing my undergrad at Rice basically set me up for my career. So that was huge for me, I think. And I would have never expected to be in the research shop, to be involved in research in undergrad. Like, just speaking of where I come from. And yeah.
And so that experience now leads into your whole new pathway, right? You follow it, and sure enough, this is compelling, and you're on a new road.
Yeah.
Beauty. Okay, thanks, Manira. And Andrea, how about yourself? Expectations v reality. How did it shake out for you?
Well, the first, I guess, in the period of time when I was learning English, since I wasn't really confident with my English, I hadn't had a chance to actually meet people on campus.
Sure.
But then once I finished and I started to focus on building my career, I think it's very important for you, the person that is listening, is to choose the right university, not only because it's affordable, but also because it's driven. Because when I moved to Nova Scotia, for instance, I did 2 tours to Dalhousie University and St. Mary's University. When I went to Dal, I was feeling like I didn't see any international students around, and it was just very cold vibe. And then I went to St. Mary's, and St. Mary's is known for having a student from more than 100 countries. And you'll go around campus and you see, I have friends from literally every part of the world. And that feeling of going to school and being able to meet people from all the countries, it just makes the academic experience more engaging, and also the opportunities as well. Like if you see a school it has this data that has like 60% international students, go for it, because that's where most of the opportunities for international students happen, in terms of just going to school just because it's affordable, I would say. Like it's important to look at the financial aspect, but also the multicultural aspect, because that can really affect your academic career in the long term.
I really appreciate that, Andrea. And yeah, so thank you. It helps set the stage for my next sort of question too, and we'll stick with you for this to start. And that is the connections, right? Feeling supported, having a network you can rely on. How did you kind of develop that over time, and how important was that to you feeling like you would be a success here?
Well, I think I would start first right on COVID, because COVID really impacted being a student at university.
Sure.
And that's what was one of the reasons why I decided to start the podcasting career. Because I was like, okay, I only know people that speak Spanish as a Spanish speaker. But how am I able to meet people that speak English, but we also share the same thing in common? And that was the main reason why having a podcast had made me not only meet other people, but people share their stories about how it's like to meet different cultures. Because like everyone kind of like, people think like the local student experience is different from an international experience. But then when you listen to the podcast, it's like we are all the same people at the end of the day. We all have the same bursaries, financial situations, cultural shock, um, yeah, just the different aspect of the international experience and the local experience. At the end of the day, it always turns to be the same when you create connections with different people, instead of just instead of just meeting people that only speak your language, or only like the game that you play, or you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah, kind of
Sorry.
broaden your horizons a bit.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
know.
Okay, thanks very much, Andrea. Munira, I think we lost Munira. Munira, I don't know that you can hear us. Oh, great. Okay, we lost your video, but if you can hear us, that's great. Can you give us just a bit of context about sort of connections, networking? How did you build community when you arrived in Canada?
I was assigned two mentors, one by the International Student Board, and then one more someone who was in my program, but at a higher. People really guided my. I guess by every step, I asked them about everything, like how to how to manage time, how can I build experience, what stuff do I need to get into med school, because back then I was planning to go to med school, how to network with profs. I learned everything on them. And then when I did eventually get into a changed, I guess, I sort of became buddies with the professors, which actually to me get to know them on a more personal level. So even though I'm not at Ryerson anymore, I'm still employed by many of the profs as they're teaching us.
Right. Very cool.
So I guess like being in a lab really, and then of course they introduced me to their other professors, like their buddies at other universities.
Right.
So I guess everybody that I interacted with, I sort of like got their network.
Perfect. You can't beat that. And that comes back to sort of saying yes, right? To having that opportunity and okay, I'll give it a shot. Beauty. Okay, thanks, Munira. Ricardo, how about yourself? Your plans fell apart pretty early on arrival. What did you do to sort of build that network up, build those relationships?
Yeah, so planning on coming to here, luckily I had a friend from childhood from the same hometown, and we planned together. So we came together, and we arrived in Canada in the same day in Toronto. We stayed on our Airbnb, so I had that support from the beginning of him and each other, which was very important. Also, the Brazilian connections, the Brazilian network, the clubs and the social media, Facebook page, there's a group also even in Google, which helped a lot and answered many questions. And this is a big thing for you to, when you're planning on coming here. If you find a friend from home that want to engage in the same plan, that'd be it's it's a great support to come. If not, then reach out for to your people. Look in social media pages. You find your community at that place very easily in WhatsApp groups or Facebook. This would be my advice, and that's what helped me a lot through that process. So sharing amongst Brazilians.
Perfect. Yeah. So finding the people, okay, this is familiar, right? Makes me kind of feel a little bit more at home. Thanks, Ricardo. And Noah, it sounds like this is sort of similar for you, right? Connecting with your community. Can you speak a bit more about how you built those relationships over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started, yes, I like to associate myself with the Chinese speaking community, particularly. And then I quickly realized it was somewhat limiting myself because my English wasn't improving, and there was certain problems that I'm not really emerging into the Canadian society. So, and as I progress in my undergrads, I start realize nobody was talking to the staff, the lab technicians that we do our class in. Nobody was talking to the professors. Nobody was talking to the course coordinators. I start realizing these school staffs are not really being appreciated in a lot of cases. The students are either very scared or they never really found a need to actually talk to them. um, so I really like talk to people. During my high school, I really enjoy spending my time in the guidance office, which they absolutely know everything about this process. And the same thing goes to my lab coordinators and my lab technicians. They have spent 20 years in working in the university, seeing thousands of students going through, but none of them went there to make friend with them because there are students and there's students and staff. There is a difference somehow that prevents friendship to form.
Right.
But it wasn't really the case to me, I guess. Before, I was a very shy person. I don't really talk to people in English in general because I'm shy and I don't want to talk to people because I'm not confident enough. But eventually, I just decide, you know what? I'm going to talk to the person and ask questions and ask for help. I'm not embarrassed, even though something can be very, very silly. Instead of being embarrassed, I just say, sorry, I'm still learning, but this is making sense. Not making sense. I'm not quite understanding. Could you explain it again?
Mhm.
I end up getting a lot of relationships that way. And of course, the most valuable experience and how to navigate through academia and life in general, because those people have lived 20 years ahead of me and they have so much experience and relationships. Yeah, and to be honest, I definitely had dark times and hard times going through the 8 years in Canada. I have cried in my professor's office. I have cried and I said I just want my moms to be there for me. In
Sure.
my course coordinator's office, she stood up and she gave me a hug and
Nice.
said everything will be okay. And that was the time actually I was in the co-op program and I couldn't find a job.
Mm.
So there were hard times, and these relationships definitely keep me going. Yeah.
Beauty. Thanks for sharing that story, Noah. And I think it goes to the bones that you need to be vulnerable sometimes, right? Open yourself up
I
to that.
totally agree. If you can't be vulnerable or you can't really make a connection with anyone, is always so polite, so um what is the word? Um so formal with someone that
Mm.
is always students and staff or students and professor, there's never going to be a personal connection to
Sure.
that part. So I think a lot as an international student, that can be hard because of the language barrier on top of everything else. But yeah, yeah.
Beauty. Thanks, Noah. I appreciate that. Okay, great. And Ali, how about yourself, sir? Connections, networking, peers. How'd you develop that when you arrived?
I would say when I started here initially, I was very close to my friends from my own country. But then I decided like I should like start learning about other cultures, about other people. I think like that would bring me more different perspective. So I was very happy that During my first year, I went to so many events that my university organized, and there I met people who have like similar interests than me. So when we found a common interest, then we made more friendships. I think like that helped me a lot. And then throughout my university, I was very engaged with like student clubs. Like whenever there's a volunteer opportunity, I would raise my hand up.
Hmm.
So that gave me like a lot of exposure and a lot of like network to make off. And then finally, when I graduated, now that I'm off in the industry, right? So I stayed very connected with my university as well as with like different associations which are like more career related. And then I found a new network of friends who are more like career oriented. So I would say
Hmm.
it's all about like, how you go and seek out uh, those networks. People are willing to help, people are willing to answer, people are willing to like guide you. It's up to us like how we go and make those initiative calls.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Beauty. I think you're totally right. Right. There are people who want to help, and it's making that first step that can be the hardest part and the most important. So thanks very much for weighing in, Ali. So we've got now about 10 more minutes. There's one more topic I really want to cover in the roundtable format, and then I want to take some questions too, because we got a lot of good ones. And I've sort of messed up our order here. So, Manira, I'm coming to you next. Bear with me. This is the big one that students want to hear about, and that is cost, right? International fees are 3 or 5 times as expensive as domestic fees. How did you manage to, I guess, cover the fees, and yeah, how did you manage to cover it all when you came?
So I guess the biggest thing is keep an eye on scholarship deadlines, because that's something that I didn't do. And then right now I'm applying for my brother, and that's like on my priority list basically. So if there's always like a few, for Ryerson it's 2 major scholarships, like huge chunks of money. It's not a fully funded scholarship, but it's really good still. So I guess just keep an eye on scholarship deadlines. What was my supported me when I was working, but then second year onwards, I started working in a lab. So during the summer, I had a full-time position as a research assistant. During the fall and months, I had several part-time jobs, but I can only work 20 hours a week, which is if you don't have anything played, but realistically, it's only 10 hours a week that you can commit because you have other obligations like studying, I guess, projects.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, and
Oh, go ahead.
related to research, I got more grants as I was in a lab. So that really, really, really helped.
Right. So it starts to sort of feed into one another, right? The lab now gets you the options for scholarships and the connections and so on, right? Okay, Manira, thanks very much. So you pulled together a lot of different sources, really, it sounds like. Ali, how about you yourself? Similar story? How'd you manage to cover it?
I would say one of the things that gave me advantage was when I was in university, I became a residence advisor at
Hmm.
my university housing. So that made me live in housing for free for the whole undergraduate degree. So you used to get like a nice big room, free dorm
Yeah,
plus extra money, right? So that helped me
sure.
subsidize my housing and my food cost. And then I was left with like tuition fees. One thing that I really learned very early in my education career was that if you volunteer in community, academia, like there's a lot of grants and scholarships that you can avail just based on your volunteer work and experience. And through that, I got like a lot of like bursaries, I got a lot of like grants, I got like a lot of awards. We subsidized my education. And finally, at the end, I did like 3 co-op terms with like some very nice organizations, and then I got like a very nice pay from that. So that kind of like education. And so like when I graduated at the end of the my term, I graduated with like money in my bank rather than like being in debt. So I think like it's all start learning that a lot of people don't like apply for grants and bursaries, so please go and apply for them. There is like thousands and thousands of dollars out there that go unclaimed if you don't apply for them. So always have a chance to do that.
Great advice, Ali. Thanks. And again, it's the sort of pulling together multiple sources, right? The co-op and scholarships and so on. Uh, Thanks again. Noah, how about yourself, sir? How did you pull together the fees and funds needed to cover it?
For me, why was during my undergrads, of course, is very expensive. It's usually somewhere about 31 grand a year during my undergrads.
Right.
So I was actually working as a waiter in a Chinese restaurant. I think throughout my first year and the second year in the afternoon, but the restaurant is like 2 minutes away from where I lived. So I worked. There was some money to make there. And then during the summer, I didn't go back to China. In fact, 8 years, I went back to China once. So I barely had any vacations. During summer, I worked.
Sure.
Yes, during summer, I worked. And then towards the end of my undergrad, I worked as a teaching assistant. One thing a lot of people might not know is that in the university, the teaching assistant or TAs, I guess, the TAs are actually paid at a very different rate because the rate is generally higher. I was getting paid somewhere about, I believe it was $45 an hour as an undergraduate TA.
Not bad.
Sorry, I was getting paid somewhere about 30 something as an undergraduate TA. So that pays a lot of bills, although there was only 10 hours a week. So it was a low workload, but a high reward, I guess, in that case. However, I was asked to be trustworthy individuals in my particular field and in my skill sets. It's not open to just about everyone. So it's usually a senior student who is good at what they do.
Right.
And then my graduate students, the school offered me scholarships, I think, because I'm a research-based student. We are being paid, generally in Canadian universities, we're being paid to stay full-time as a research graduate student. There is scholarships to cover the tuition and a little bit extra to cover the living cost to live. So, but in exchange, we're not allowed to actually take second jobs in addition to whatever, in addition to our schoolwork. So we have to research for the full time. I applied for scholarships. As international students, opportunities are rare. The big ones, the tri-council so-called scholarships, are usually bigger ones that are not generally open to international students. But in each university, there's always like a millions of internal scholarships that is $500 there, $1,000 there. I applied a bunch of them. I got some of them. So it was free money to grab, but a lot of writing to do. It definitely took a lot of my time. And now I'm a permanent resident and most of the domestic applications are open up to me. So making things slightly easier, but it's not that easy to stay competitive in a lot of things. You have to really build up your career and make your resume attractive, and all of those things require energies. So it's alternative form of working, I guess. Yeah.
True. And
yeah.
Yeah, great point, Noah. Okay, thanks very much. I appreciate that insight. Ricardo, how about you? Anything specific that you sort of, anything to add?
Sure. Yes, throughout this time, I have learned a lot regarding financial situations. So I got a few advices for you guys, and depends on the situation where you at now. If you're young, like most of the panel here, except for me, and you're thinking about coming to Canada, you might consider express entry before you arrive to Canada. There is an express entry calculator where, in being young, you accumulate a lot of points, and perhaps you can get your PR, a permanent residency, before arriving here. So what Noah experienced now with paying domestic fees and having many scholarships available for him, you can do that if you, upon arrival, you have a permanent residency. You come here as a permanent resident. If that's not an option, if you're older like myself, you have your scholarship office is your best bet. Make friends with people there, go there, find out all about it. Yes, there are scholarships available for international students. Less, but there are. Search, do your research. On this panel here, on the fair, just an hour before, there was a panel talking about ways to pay for school. Suzanne Tyson spoke about it, and that she brings a lot of information there as well for you. Another thing, like Ali said, housing supervisor, if you can subsidize it that way, being working inside, perfect. And also there is another website that's called Higher Ed Points that allows you to pay for education, tuition, or student loans with points that you accumulate on credit cards. So you could even start a fund, advertising for people who have many points that are not using because they can travel due to COVID and things like that. And they can, pay for part of your tuition. You can raise money like that way too. So, you just need to be creative, persistent, and look for it. Open to look, ask questions. Everybody here in Canada is willing to help. If you humbleness, ask humbly and honestly, everybody will extend their hand and help you.
Great advice, Ricardo. Yeah, thank you. Andrea, how about yourself? Fees, costs, how'd you manage it?
Great question. I would like to highlight what Ricardo and Ali mentioned before, and Noah as well. First thing, I will say that you need to find someone that keeps you accountable in Canada, because in the beginning, my family was supporting me, and I was by myself looking for the scholarship as an international student. But then I find that I was wasting a lot of time, and the internet that I was finding online wasn't really high enough to cover my career. So what I did, one of my friends mentioned that I should go to the international center and ask for a mentor that can be in charge of keeping me accountable for deadlines and also help me apply for the scholarships. And that was a very helpful way for me to apply without me having to do it. And then another thing that I think is it really, really helped me with my uh, student account was being a Spanish TA. So one thing I would recommend to you guys is to use your knowledge. Like if you know Chinese or you know French, use it at school and be a teacher assistant, because that's, as Noah was mentioning before, the salary as a teaching assistant is completely different from working outside of campus. So just make sure that you find the resources on campus before looking outside, because normally, people want to help, as Ricardo was saying. It's just that you have to make sure that you use what you already have instead of just looking around, wasting time.
I appreciate that, Andrea, and segues nicely into, we're pretty much out of time. We are, in fact, over a little bit. I want to just do one more lightning round before we sign off, and that is the question we got from a student here. What do you folks do for fun in Canada, and is it expensive to enjoy your leisure time? So we'll do a quick lightning round. Andrea, what do you do for fun?
Can we ask Ricardo first?
Ricardo, what do you do for fun? And is it expensive?
You have more experience, probably,
Sure, of course. So I can speak for Toronto and in Halifax, right? Andrea, you're here too. So there are many free programs out there. Parks are great. They're free. You can go join festivals in the summer. Every season you have different things. Just browse around, ask Google. It'll answer you beautifully. With the kids, we go to the park a lot. In the winter, we go sledding, we go skiing. Some parks you can camp, and then in it ranges on the price, depending on what you want to experience. So there are many things for fun to do here, and it's limitless. And it's even here in Halifax or Toronto. Toronto is even more because it's a bigger city. There's lots of good things going on there. Festivals, cultural stuff, amazing.
Thanks, Ricardo. Noah, how about yourself? Lightning round. What do you do for fun, and is it expensive?
I like to do volunteers in the university. There was opportunities to interact with LEAP camp during the summer in the research greenhouse. It was just like somewhere about 5 years old all the way to 12 years old kids, and coming to greenhouse and learning science about all kinds of amazing plants. So yeah, I do those things for fun. Lots of volunteers, and the research greenhouse at McMaster is my oasis during my undergrad for sure. Yeah.
Very cool. It's a great one. Thank you very much, Noah. Ali, how about yourself? Yeah, what do you do for fun, and is it expensive?
I can speak for Vancouver. We're very mountains and ocean here. Like you can do like skiing and scuba diving the same day if you want. But I would say like there's a lot of like parks. There's a lot of like hikes you can go and do. I like exploring like different cuisines. We are like one of the most multicultural city in the world. So like I go and like explore like different cultures and cuisines.
Cool. Okay, that's a good one. Great. Thanks very much. Munira, how about yourself? Same question.
Okay, so there are parts to it. During undergrad, I didn't really have a lot of time. So I guess fun would be grabbing dinner or, oh yeah, board cafes. We did a lot. Just group. So if we were studying together, I guess after 8 or 9, we'd go to a board game cafe for 2 hours. And in grad school, I have more time, and I have a stipend, so I have a little bit. I have more to splurge. So I guess now I would, go to an escape room. I would still go out for dinner, but I guess it would be a pricey place. But yeah.
Cool. Okay, great. Thanks, Munira. And last but not least, Andrea, we're coming back around to you. How about yourself?
Well, if we divide, as we know, there's like 6 months of cold, another 6 months of like hot. So
Yeah.
in the hot time, I like to, be outside because Canada has like very good parks. Hiking is the best thing to do here. It's cheap, If you're someone that likes to walk, it's very, very good. And then in terms of like when it's cold, at least in this side of East Coast Canada, they have this week that is called Halifax Burger Week. I love that week because it's literally like different restaurants across the city. They create new burgers for like maybe like $5 maybe, and you can just like taste them, and it's so community driven. So I would say food, sports, and yeah, pretty much it.
Beauty. Perfect. Thanks so much, Andrea, and everybody on the panel. We are, of course, over time. Sorry, folks, we didn't get to all the questions. Lots to discuss, but I really want to thank everyone watching for tuning in, for asking great questions, and of course, Andrea, Ricardo, Noah, Ali, and Munira, for your time and expertise and weighing in here. Really, really do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
My pleasure, of course. Everybody stick around for the rest of the fair, and otherwise have a great afternoon. See ya.
Bye-bye.